Saints, we've been going through the seven seals, and we've seen that it's not what you were told. Those on the broad road to destruction, as we've said, all they see is death and destruction. But we came in the small gate, we're on the narrow way, and we're seeing this revelation of Jesus Christ, this revelation of Yeshua the Messiah. And in the seven seals, we've seen the seals cover the entire church age. And we saw in the first seal that the church was waiting for the Lord to return, as he will in Revelation chapter 19 on that white horse. But the Lord is what he was saying to them in the early church, and what he's saying to us is that man will continue to reign upon the earth until all those chosen by the Father have had their sin, their debt released through the breaking of the seven seals, because the seals cover the entire church age, and the breaking of the seals is the Lord releasing us of our sin, our debt throughout the church age. And then we saw in the second seal that as a result of man ruling and reigning, conquering upon earth by God's authority, that he would be going out and causing wars, and they'd be slaying one another. And as a result of that, in the natural conditions upon the earth, that there would be famines. Because the church was waiting for him to return and bring this land of milk and honey, where we would never go short anymore. But he said that throughout the church age there would be famines, and that the rich would continue to have their riches throughout the entire church age. And then we saw in the fourth seal, the church was waiting for him to return and put an end to death in the grave. But he's showing us in the fourth seal that the death in the grave would continue throughout the entire church age for over 2,000 years now. And we saw in the fifth seal that those that had been slain in John's time were already slain, and they're waiting for him to bring for wilt thou refrain from judging and avenging our blood? They're waiting for him to come and avenge their blood and raise them from the dead. But what did he say in verse 11? They should rest for a little while longer until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who were to be killed, even as they had been killed, should be completed. So God the Father knows those that are in that scroll, that throughout the church age, those that would give up their life for the Word of God. And he's saying here, for those that had already been slain in John's days, that those had to be completed. All those that would be slain throughout the church age, right down to the last 3.5 years of the tribulation, when the Jews will be being slain as they turn to Christ. And now we come to the sixth seal. Like we've said, like by now you should clearly understand, the seals cover the entire church age, the time that men can and will be saved. And as we're now going to see, the sixth seal covers the tribulation period, because that's the end of the age. That's the end of time. And that's a time when hundreds of millions of people will be saved. It started with man ruling and reigning upon the earth in the first seal, right back to the Romans in the early church days. And as we see in the tribulation, it's going to go to and through the tribulation period. That's why the seals, the sixth seal, the ending of the breaking of the seals other than the seventh seal, is the tribulation period, because it's the end of the time that men can and will be saved. And we'll see that very clearly now. The sixth seal covers the tribulation period. And in Revelation 6:12, and I looked when he broke the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake. Now, why would the first thing be mentioned? Because the breaking of the sixth seal covers the tribulation period. And as we've said before in many messages, hour one, day one of the tribulation will start with, you can number the days of the tribulation exactly by when the tribulation starts. And the tribulation starts hour one, day one, when an asteroid will hit in the Atlantic Ocean. And that's why the first thing you see is this great earthquake. Because the first thing that's going to happen as the asteroid hits is a giant earthquake. The biggest earthquake in the history of modern man. And I looked when he broke the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake. This is starting the tribulation. The sixth seal covers the tribulation, and this is going to start with hour one, day one of the tribulation. And the sun became black as sackcloth, made of hair, and the whole moon became like blood. Because as we're going to see here in the next few verses, as that asteroid hits into the ocean, first there'll be a giant earthquake. Then it'll kick up, and as we're going to see even in more detail, it's going to kick up this giant cloud of debris from the ocean floor, and the land near there. And we're all going to also can see these things that we're about to see in Joel chapter 2, verses 30 and 31. And I will display in the sky and on the earth blood, fire, and columns of smoke. The sun will be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes. So this breaking of the sixth seal is hour one, day one of the tribulation, as that asteroid enters the Earth's atmosphere and crashes into the ocean. The first thing that's going to happen is a giant earthquake. That cloud will kick up. And the sun became black as sackcloth, made of hair, and the whole moon became like blood. Now verse 13, look at this, saints. This is all has to do with the same thing. These are not a series of events. The book of Revelation is not in order. It picks up a subject and carries it to the end. Right now, we're seeing the start of the tribulation. And in verse 13, as that asteroid hits, causes that giant earthquake, this giant cloud kicks up. Verse 13, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth. Now many of these silly teachers on the broad road to destruction with their crazy children's horror stories tell you all these crazy things. They tell you that the stars from the universe in heaven will fall to earth. It's ridiculous. If one star came even close to the earth would be evaporated. It would be gone. So what's happening here? And the stars of the sky fell to the earth. That stars there, what it's saying, where they get that term is, because it means something in the sky, something covering the sky. Like at night, the stars covering the sky. And the stars of the sky, that means the atmosphere, fell to the earth. As a fig tree casts its unripe figs when shaken by a great wind. Imagine being under a fruit tree and shaking it real hard, and all the apples or fruit or pear, whatever, just comes tumbling down. Woo! That's what's going to happen as the asteroid hits, kicks up that debris. That stars of the sky will be all that debris in the sky, and it will come falling down quickly. In verse 14, we see more of this. And the sky was split apart. The sky was split apart like a scroll when it has been rolled up. Now we've all seen many documentaries, images, movies, pictures of like when an atomic bomb goes off and it rises up and it rolls like a scroll. You'll get that rolling action. It's the same thing if a moderate-sized asteroid hits. It'll kick up debris and it'll roll. And all that debris that's up in the sky will fall. Rocks and debris and boats and junk and the ocean floor and ocean material will all be kicked up. And material from the land that's there will all be kicked up, and it will fall down to earth like a tree being shaken, and everything will come down, and the sky was split apart like a scroll, like a nuclear bomb rolling up. That's what this is talking about. I saw this one day. The Lord showed me this in this Vision, I don't know. I saw it as plain as day. I was looking out over rolling hills like you see back east in the United States. And all of a sudden there was a loud noise and this cloud of dust and debris. Imagine like when you see these images, these videos of when a volcano erupts and this cloud of debris and dust and gas comes rolling off of it. I saw that in the distance, and there was shaking and noise, and I heard everybody saying, it started now, and they wanted to get underground. And I looked, and I could see it so plainly, saints. This debris, these stars in the sky was debris, boulders, debris, junk, parts of the earth, material was cast up, and it started falling down. And I saw just what you see in Joel. And I will display wonders in the sky and on the earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke. Coming out of like giant boulders or debris was columns of smoke. You've seen it when volcanoes erupt or something like that happens, and in these movies where this debris is coming down and a big long column of smoke is behind it. It was everywhere. It was raining down like shaking a giant fruit tree and having all the fruit fall quickly. And it was coming down with these columns of smoke. Some were on fire, some were just smoking, but it was falling down, and everybody was trying to get underground, to get in underground garages and sewers and underground parking. Anywhere they could, that were anywhere near that, were trying to get underground. And that's what this is talking about. And the sky was split apart like a scroll when it is rolled up. Now here's another thing, saints, that all those on the broad road to destruction and their crazy stories that make people not want to be Christians because they're silly, they're lost speech that has no point to it. Look what it says next. And every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And those on the broad road to destruction, some great teachers supposedly, want to tell you that around the whole earth, every mountain and island will be gone. And most of them try to teach you that the book of Revelation is a continuous story. And you see this again in Revelation 16, 19, and 20. So they try to tell you it happens a second time. How dumb could that be? Every island and mountain is gone, and then a second time they're all gone? It makes no sense. This is not a continuous story. This is mentioned twice, and where it says, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places, it's talking about where the asteroid hits. And of course that would happen where an asteroid hits. First of all, right where it hits, it's going to cause a big hole. And then every mountain and island near there will be leveled and moved and twisted out of their shape. That's what it's talking about. Now, the further you get from the impact, the less and less it will be destructive until it isn't moving mountains and islands. Depending upon the size of the asteroid is how far that damage will go. But that is what it's talking about. Every mountain and island were moved out of their places where the asteroid hits. Not in some silly, broad road to destruction way around the whole earth. That's crazy. This is the very beginning, hour one, day one of the tribulation. And then we go to verse 15. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the commanders, and the rich, and the strong, and every slave and free man, hid themselves in the caves and amongst the rocks of the mountains. That's what I was saying, everybody was trying to hide. So that's what's going on here. But you can see this can't be worldwide in those crazy stories they tell you, because it says, in the kings, the rulers of the earth, the great men, still great men, and the commanders, and the rich, They're still rich there, and the strong and every slave and free man hid themselves. This is now where we're going into the end of the tribulation, because now that has happened. Now see what happens that happened through that asteroid strike, hour 1, day 1 of the tribulation. The sixth seal covers the tribulation. And now look at verse 16. And they said to the mountains and to the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the presence of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come. And who is able to stand? This is the end of the tribulation. That's why the sixth seal covers the entire tribulation. From hour 1, day 1 that the asteroid hits, going down to the end of the tribulation. That's where this happens. Fall on us and hide us from the presence of him who sits on the throne. This is the end of the tribulation. As Christ comes to rule and reign, they want to tell you in some weird way, he's going to sit on a throne above the earth as all this destruction's going on and everybody's going to want to hide. No, this is going through the entire tribulation. This is the end of the tribulation as he's coming to rule and reign and hide us from him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of God. For the great day of their wrath has come. The end of the tribulation, going into the end of the tribulation. And who is able to stand? So, the seals cover the entire church age. And we just saw that the sixth seal clearly covers the entire tribulation. This is not a series of events opening up the tribulation. This is the church age. And I might go back in the next message and cover chapter 7, because it's very important what that has to do with, including, as we've read many times in Revelation 7:9, after these things I looked and behold a great multitude, which no one could count, from every nation and all tribes and peoples and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white. And then later, one of those 24 elders says to John, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation, and they have washed their robes. That's why Christians are in the tribulation. They get saved in the tribulation because most of the church is still here to preach the gospel to them in the tribulation. We may go back and touch on that again, but for now, we're in this revelation of the seals. And then we got the seventh seal. Totally misunderstood too, because those on the broad road to destruction want to tell you this. Let's read it first. Revelation 8:1. And when he broke the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. So he breaks the seventh seal. The seals cover the entire church age. It covers him breaking those seals, releasing that debt, releasing that penalty of sin and death against all those chosen by the Father. So at the breaking of the seventh seal, why is there silence in heaven? Because God's about to bring more hell on earth? Yeah. Right after this, we're going to actually start the tribulation, but we're not there yet. Seven's the number of completion, fulfillment, perfection. And the seals have to do with those chosen by the Father having their debt released, having their sins washed, having been washed in the blood of the Lamb. So at the seventh seal, there's silence in heaven. Why? Romans 8:19 and Romans 8:18 and 19. For I consider that the sufferings of this present age are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the anxious longing of creation waits eagerly for the revealing of the sons of God. This is the revealing of the sons of God. This is the completion of the forgiveness, the releasing of that debts through the blood of the Son of God. This is the fulfillment, the perfection of the church, the saints, the people of God. From the beginning, first day of the church, to the last Jew that's saved at the end of the tribulation. And there's silence in heaven because it's complete. It's perfected. It's the revealing of the sons of the living God, those having their sins forgiven, that debt paid, those seals broken, that they're set free, that they have found life in the blood of the Lamb, and their silence in heaven for half of an hour at the revealing of the sons of God, at the fulfillment, the completion, the perfection of His work to set free, to release that debt from those chosen by the Father. You've been chosen by the Father. He's calling a people to get prepared for His coming. Those that can hear the voice of one crying in the wilderness, saying to repent and prepare the way of the Lord, because He's coming as a thief in the night for those that have their lamps lit. Don't be caught off guard in the darkness. Be ready, repent, and prepare the way of the Lord.